Alright, we're going to go through a very cute little logo for the flying pig here. And first thing we're going to do is I did give you the drawing resource file. This was a very quick little sketch, so it's a little rough, especially on the feet. We're going to place it, and then we are going to create a template layer in our layers menu. The next thing I want to do is create a new layer, and let's just title this one inking. So this is going to be our line work. If this is the first time you're checking out one of our videos on YouTube, or if you're in class, just double check that you are minimizing the YouTube video, and then it's designed so you can work directly along with it. Alright, next we've got our brushes, and I am basically loading up my cartoon brushes. So there is a resource file for that. Also keep in mind there is a cartoon brushes and how to load them and how to create your own. So this video we're going to go a little bit slower with our pen tool. Keep in mind some just rules of thumb. Anytime we are doing a curve, just click and hold. Anytime we're coming back on itself, that is going to be the Alt key. And then straight lines are your really easy one, and that's just click, click, click. If we are doing a curve, like right now, we are doing an anchor point before the curve and then after the curve. Click, drag. I'm going to come back on itself, so that's an Alt after I have it, and then I'm going to click and drag. Other little rule of thumb is have your left hand on the keyboard, hover right around the Shift, Control, Alt, and then also be aware that we bounce back and forth between the A, which is our direct selection tool, so I can modify each one of our anchor points and our handles, and then V would be our selection tool. Most of the time will be A. We'll just be modifying our lines, and I like doing it as I go, by the way. Okay, once I have all of my places, I'm going to go back to my black arrow. So I'm going to click V, select my line, and then I can come in and I can actually modify what brush I have. Select. Now, if we are picking out our brushes, this one, since it's touching, so anytime they actually come in two lines merge, that's usually where the thick lines will actually come in. Notice on the top of the head, as it kind of goes into the body, anything that's kind of floating in space, that's going to be one of our tapered. Now, in our cartoon brushes, I have both directions, just so everyone is aware. Meaning, let's say for the forehead shape, I have a skinny in both directions. So if you're clicking one and it's not fat where you want it, just kind of click on the other one. I know in the video it's harder to see. Okay, since this is going to be open, I want that to be tapered. Click, drag. Other little tidbit, especially if this is your first video, we try and keep our lines nice and short, and then we can always come back. So that'll really usually keep our lines. One, we can modify them, and we can change the stroke, which is important. So we have line variation, but it also will take away a lot of that frustration. Also notice that there is overlapping, so we can always come back and clean stuff up. So instead of trying to get things perfect or line up perfect the first time, we have a lot of overlapping, and then we have very short lines, and that usually takes away a lot of the headaches. And right now I'm pretty zoomed out, just so you can see the brush panel, but if I was working, I would be a lot more zoomed in. It'll save your headaches, especially if you're selecting. I think that took quite a bit of time for me to realize to be way zoomed in, especially with Illustrator. Okay, since both of these lines are opening in space, that's going to be the skinny on the edges. That's going to go fat to skinny. I don't think I add another little crease line, but you could add another crease line too. So it looks like the pig's nose is folding. It's usually an adorable little thing to do. Okay, click P, Alt, come back on itself, click and drag. Make it a little bit fatter. Click P, click and drag. Click, drag, and come back on itself. Click, drag. Our goal is where you guys can start falling in love with the pen tool. That's our goal. Just a minute. Every time if it's curved, click and hold. If it's going to come back on itself, then it's the Alt. Click P. Every time I say click P, that's just to reset. So if your lines connect or they keep looking like they connect, just click P before you start, and it'll actually reset the tool. So sometimes that's a little bit of frustration too. Right now I'm just doing line work. We'll fill in everything later. Click drag, Alt, click drag. Now I'm going through and I'm modifying the brushes as we go through. You could at least, if you wanted to just go all the way through just with the pen tool and then come back with your brushes, you can totally do that too. Very flexible. You guys can do whatever you want. Click drag, Alt, come back. Now the back ear and the back wings, those are going to actually get filled in, so they're not as important with the line there. Now you guys can't see it. I'm actually going to be using the scissors tool, and what that's going to do is going to snip, and that's going to be how I'm going to get this half moon shape. Now in the drawing, there's a little bit more perspective with my lines, with the eyes, which I actually like a little bit better. And I totally missed it in the drawing in the illustration. But here's the scissors. Click, click. And then you'll be able to just basically delete the top. You could also keep it straight. So I just draw an oval straight, use a rectangle tool, cover the top of it with a filled rectangle, and then I could just use a pathfinder too. Sometimes students are not as comfortable with the pathfinder. So it's just a little other option for you. So perspective-wise, I would take that right eyeball and make it a little bit bigger. Other thing you could do is keep everything on the same plane, and then actually modify it and actually use the free distort tool, and then actually kind of give a little bit more of a perspective to it. So as I'm staring back at it, I would probably do that. Okay, a little tongue. Same thing, scissors. Snip, snip. You could totally use the pen tool as well. No, in my original drawing, I do have a kind of a, I don't even know what you want to call it, tongue back of the mouth. So if you wanted to add that back in, I left it out for this drawing, but you guys could easily put that one back in. So the line is there for you guys to put it back in. Now for the legs, very, very simple. I think it's just pen tool and click drag, alt back on itself. I kept the feet pretty simple. I'm actually embarrassed about the feet. They are so simple. So other little things you can do, you can totally put some toes on them. That would be probably a good little thing to be doing. All I did there was just alt, and then I just duplicated them out and then shrink them up. So you can either, once you're done, hold alt, make a copy, or just copy paste, and that'll give you some of your little feet there. Now for the tail, I am just using the pen tool, and I'm just using the brush. I'm fattening that up, and that's just going to be solid. Okay, and that looks pretty good. For the most part, the only thing we have left is our little nostrils.
Click drag, and we're going to come back on itself. Now you guys can make the nostrils really whatever size. Also, I have seen just kind of little, instead of this circle, just kind of the creases. That top crease could also shrink down too. So just duplicated, reflect. For this back one, I do want to shrink it, and I do want to modify the size a little bit too. All right, looks pretty good. Things we're going to do at this point is just double check, are the lines the way I want? Are they thick where I want? If you wanted to modify, this would be the time. What we are basically going to do is we are going to start cleaning up all of our overlaps. So what we want to do is we are basically zooming in. We want to expand. Just keep going until you see all of the stroke lines done. And I'm kind of speeding through this one, but I'm going to select it. So here's the kind of the key part is with your selection tool, click V. I'm going to go Shift E and or just use the eraser tool, and I'm just clicking on any of the overlapping. So it is very, very easy to just come back in and clean up all of those little lines. Click, click, click. So this is really, really easy. So why I like this one is it simplifies the pen tool. This process is brain dead. So I really, really like that you don't have to spend a crazy amount of time perfecting your lines. You can use overlapping, and then you can kind of go from there. So at this point, we are pretty much ready to go. I'm going to duplicate out the line layer, one, just so I have it, but also we're going to have kind of the coloring on its own layer, and then we're going to have the inking or the line work on its own layer. So we're going to go drop down to Live Paint Bucket. make. And then we're just going to come in, and I'm just going to fill in basically anything that I want purple. So all my solid blacks are going to be purple. Keep in mind, you could have colored them purple in the beginning, or just had the stroke that way too. Wouldn't have hurt anything. Okay, looks good. Now, after you do the live paint bucket, some little things to just be aware of is sometimes you'll see these little ghost marks, so it is good to expand. And then it is good to also do uniting in the Pathfinder as well. Now I'm going to modify, and we're going to add some gradients, but this is just to kind of fill in just some pinks and things like that first. Color-wise, a little thing I think you could probably do the same thing. I think I typed in piggy or pig into Adobe Cooler. If you guys haven't checked that site out, it's awesome. So you just click on search or explore, and then just type in whatever you want. And for the most part, somebody else has already created a color scheme for you. So it really, really is an easy thing. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I want my basically all the purple and all my line work on one layer, and then I want to have the color on a separate layer. Okay, so this is what my color layer looks like. I'm going to ungroup everything, and what I'm looking to do is as long as I can select just the pink, then I'm good to go. So you might have to, usually 3, I don't know why it's 3, but ungroup. I'm going to use the magic wand tool. I'm going to select my black, and I'm going to get rid of it. And so what I'm stuck with is basically all of my pink areas that are not purple. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Now under your eraser tool, there's this nice little saw tool. And all we get to do is we basically just cut out the shapes that we want. So when we're dealing with the saw tool, things just to be aware of is just make sure you're going all the way through the shape. So this is a little bit more zoomed out, but as I click on a shape, so the first thing you're going to do is select the shape. So that's just with your selection tool. But you just want to make sure you're going all the way through it. So notice, select the shape. What I just showed you is I didn't select the shape, so nothing happens. Go all the way through. You can also zoom in, by the way. And I should be able to come in. And if I miss it, it's not going to do anything. So notice that nothing's happening. So I want to double check that. Did I go all the way through? Come back on itself. And you should be able to get this nice little, it'll glow differently, and then you'll be able to select it. So then you'll be able to tell. Now, why I like the saw, this is really just replacing the Pathfinder. You'll see a lot of people doing minus fronts and doing shadows and colors that way. For a beginner, I think this thing is 10 times easier. And all we need to do is just kind of come in, cut it out, and then it's good to go. So right now I'm just working with the flat color. And then we'll start working with our gradients. Okay, so what I just did right here, keep in mind I'm still on the color layer. I went basically Control C, Control F. So I have a new layer. I'm going to deal with transparent gradients so that pink still shines through. And so why I like doing the one is if you create a new layer, so you basically paste in front, it doesn't give you this weird overlapping. So the gradient looks a little nicer if you do it that way. Okay, sun comes from the top. We're just going to kind of modify this. This is a radial gradient. I did change the opacity of the white. And what I'm looking for is that the face is a little bit higher, and then also the kind of the belly into the butt, as well as the feet are a little bit darker. Do the same thing for the ears. Let's just do the wings. So things to just be aware of, notice that I'm using the gradient panel over on the right hand side, and then the gradient tool, you'll be able to control the direction a little bit more. Now in most of these, just be aware that I am copying and pasting. So if you're getting kind of funky lines, I didn't cover that, but the just copy C. So Control C, Control F. Anytime I'm doing a gradient or a transparent gradient, I do want to do Control C, Control a new one. Especially if we're adding this onto a background. You'll be able to tell real quick, especially with your circle. Okay, so we're going to draw a little bit of a sky here. We're going to send that one to the back. Let's control this gradient. I do want the blue still. Basically, I want a turquoise and then a white. So it's going to be a little bit more of a sky. Let's go linear. Change the opacity. And I want the white down at the bottom. Okay, looks good. Let's start creating some cloud shapes. You can just do that with white. We're just going to cut out the bottom part here. These can be pretty freeform, by the way. So I did for the circle, Control C, Control F, and then I'm just minusing the front, so now I have two shapes. So notice I have my circle still. Keep in mind, you could, if you did delete it, no biggie, just draw a new one. So as I'm cutting out, I did do a new Control F, Control C, Control F. So I can modify both. So I have a circle that's white, and then I have my gradient on top of that. And that's how I'm able to do the stroke on the circle. On the stroke panel, you're getting that funky little overlapping, you might be able to see it on the top. We just want it on the outside. And that'll usually clean up that little overlapping. But at this point, basically you can just kind of leave it as is and or do some more overlapping. I'm going to shrink up the circle a little bit, but we're getting pretty close. Little tidbits as you are adding gradients and or doing anything with the Pathfinder, just double check that you are in fact creating a new shape on that. So basically Control C, Control F. So I'm pasting in front and then I'm subtracting stuff. So I went a little brain dead as I was working. So you want to just double check that you are doing that. And then you'll have a little bit more control. So if you're getting funky transparencies with the blue in the background, just double check. You can, for the most part, just select your shapes and then do it at the back end. So you don't have to do it as you're doing it. You can modify that at any point. And then we got a nice little piggy, guys. So at this point in time, if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you guys do that to keep these things public for non-classroom students. And if you guys have any tidbits or anything that you want me to add to videos or for future videos, make sure you guys are letting me know.